Welcome to Celebrating Our Food and Telling Stories of It. I am Sophie, your host and producer, and this is Our Food Stories, the podcast for us and by us. Episode 19. Have you ever cooked bananas meant for juice? Yes, another banana story. Last season, we had a number of stories about cassava, and I have a feeling that this season is for bananas. In today's story, special guest Ritah shares her story of survival and how this particular banana, which we commonly know and use for juice, was prepared for eating. Let's get into it.
I know at some point we used to think this food was for the poor and, the less privileged. But right now, looking back, I feel like we just didn't understand and I miss it so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Ritah and I am the cooking nurse. I'm the one who runs the page, The Cooking Nurse, on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And I've been cooking. It's not like I just woke up in the morning and said, I'm now going to start cooking. No, I am an enthusiastic home cook who's pursuing a diploma in culinary arts just to take it to an extra level. I grew up with my grandmother for 12 years, and these 12 years, I do not remember buying any food in the market or like buying already cooked food. These days, people go and eat out. We never did that. We cooked and, we planted and cooked the food from our gardens. So we did everything from the beginning, preparing the land, plowing, and everything basically. And we ate all the food from our soil. So there's this one meal that we used to call Empaate. I don't know if you people know this, but Empaate comes from a type of banana that they call Embiire in my language. I'm a Mnyankole, so maybe we will find a translation for that in English. So Embiire is what they use to make alcohol. In my language, it's called tonto. So they make juice out of that Embiire because that is specifically what they do with it. They make juice, then ferment it. We get tonto, then distill the tonto into Waragi, which is like the concentrated type of alcohol which you drink as UG, Uganda Waragi. So that particular banana type is used for that. So it's not used for cooking or like eating in homes unless you want to do that particular thing. So whenever the famine hit villages, that type of matoke would stay. It never had market. If it did, then it would be cheap. But then now the famine comes in and the regular matoke is no longer available. So the only thing you have in your plantation is Embiire, and you have to make sure it works. It has a lot of Scum. I don't know if it's called Scum, amakancha. And if you cook it, it just doesn't taste normal. It's bitter because of that sticky thing in bananas. So we used to get it, put it in a warm place, and keep it for about 3 to 5 days until it starts to like ripen. Not too much, so it gets that sweetness. You cut it when it's like grown, not a young one. It gets this sweetness from the raw side to the ripe side, but then not too ripe. So after it has been kept in a warm place for about those days, then we'd bring it out and peel all the peelings off and put it on sunshine. You'd find all families have these woven baskets, woven trays, where they would dry their Embiire or Empaate that would later on turn into Empaate. So we dry it on a woven tray because it had started ripening, and if you put it, or let's say on a plastic bag or a polythene bag or a kadeya, it would stick and then you would get molds and that would not be good for you. So you had to make sure this happens broad daylight. Sunshine has to be like scorching hot, and then you put on this woven basket, because for it is going to absorb some of the moisture from the ripe matoke, ripe banana, and then you'd stay with this intact thing that is sweet inside but dry outside. Then would, of course, put it in the saucepan and steam it like the usual thing. I think the sunshine used to help remove all this bitterness in the banana and make it a little bit suitable for consuming.
Sorry for interrupting your listening, but I wanted to let you know of a few things. I had an interview a few months back with a fellow food storyteller, and I talked about how this podcast means so much to me because, in a way, we as Ugandans get to learn more about our fellow countrymen, something that we have sadly not had access to through our formal education system. And so, with each story that is contributed and shared, we learn something new about ourselves, which was the goal of this podcast to begin with. And the fact that you are listening means that that goal has been achieved. With just one more story left, season 2 is coming to an end. I love the stories that have been shared, and the fact that you're listening means you have enjoyed them too. So, to continue this podcast and to prepare for season 3, I am kindly requesting that you do these 2 things. Leave a comment, a like, a review, or a rating wherever you are listening from. If you are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, it will be great to leave a 5-star review for us, so that these stories can reach more listeners like yourself. Secondly, if you are a Ugandan or you know someone that has an interesting food story to share and they would like to contribute to this podcast, send them this podcast or send me an email at akitcheninuganda@gmail.com or a DM on Instagram or Twitter at akitcheninuganda. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story.
So we would make that and steam it and serve it tomorrow with tea, or sometimes even eat it hot. That is when the situation was really, really bad. And thinking about it right now, I feel like it was we termed it a meal for the poor people, but I miss it. I miss it. And if I could get another chance to maybe make Empaate for my family, I would do it, because it brings so much memories. It involved almost all of us in the household to, make sure you're taking part in these preparations. And yeah, so Empaate is one of those meals that I remember from my past days, and I feel like it was underrated. We just really abused it for nothing. Then another thing from the same banana, we used to make Echichumbe. I think the Baganda or other tribes call it, they call it, let me see, the word is getting out of my head. But we used to get that banana that is almost ripening, or actually like dry it when it's still raw, so that it's not bitter. And then after cooking it, it's tender. We put in our rock salt, Echihonde or Echisula in Uganda, and then cook it down with beans, dry beans. So once it was all together and mushy, then we would sit down, would get a cooking stick and then mash the mixture until it was clean. It was like soft. Then later on, we'd add in a few other beans that are whole, and then would mold it and keep it for tomorrow in banana leaves. In modern day, those are terrines. Terrines, they are served as starters. So our terrine in those days, we used to call them Echichumbe. Yes, in Uganda they call it Omugoyo. So we would keep our Echichumbe in a safe and clean environment, not too cold, not too warm, just enough to keep it, to let it set. Then in the morning, we would cut into it, and these beans that were added in later on as a whole, would give it a very good aesthetic. It would give the Echichumbe a very, very good look. It looked like an Ankara printed fabric, yeah? But it was nice with milk tea. Echichumbe used to be one of my best meals. And then the fact that we only had those ones when there was a famine outbreak in the villages and we didn't have an option, it really made cooking it like scarce, if I could say. We rarely made it. So Echichumbe also comes from that same banana type called Embiire, and it was nice. And if I am going to go back in the village again, I think I'll try and ask my mom to make Echichumbe for us. So yeah, if you're from my village or if you ever visit, you look for Embiire, and I'm sure you will not find someone who is doing this at this stage. But if you ever get a chance to eat Echichumbe, you'll tell me. Or if you eat Omugoyo, the best. Then you close that experience. But Echichumbe, called Echichumbe from last night, still warm-ish, served with a cup of milk. Heaven. Heaven.
Thank you, Rita, for this wonderful recollection. If you haven't heard of the Cooking Nurse, especially on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, you are missing out. Rita's pages are filled with mouth-watering food that will leave you hungry and salivating. I will leave the links to her pages so that you can follow her cooking journey.
I'm the Cooking Nurse, and it was such an honor to, tell you about this story that means a lot to me. My grandmother has been gone for 16 years, and every time I cook most of the meals that she taught me, it breaks my heart. I wish she was here to taste it, and I just hope she rests in peace. And she's proud of me. And I'll be glad if you check me out, for any upcoming, whatever developments we are going to be doing on the pages.
Remember, if you have a delicious food story that you would like to share, you can reach out to me via email at akitcheninuganda@gmail.com or on Instagram at akitcheninuganda. Don't forget to share the podcast with others, to leave a review or a rating, and to comment on your favorite stories wherever you listen. Doing so helps us push these stories to even more listeners. See you in the next episode.